So I want to preface this talk with a clarification that what I mean by creating addictive games, I don't mean that we should create harmful games that destroy relationships and destroy families. I mean we should create games that are so fun that people want to keep playing them every day. When I first started working on visions about 12 years ago, one of my friends asked me, "Aren't you worried people will become addicted to your game?" My response was no. If they become addicted to reading the Bible in a game, I don't think that would be a bad thing. Our game exposes players to the Bible in a safe environment. So that's what I'm referring to here, is the premise that Christian game developers, we are making healthy games that will heal people, lead them to Christ, and impact their lives in a positive way. If they're going to be addicted to a game, I want it to be a game that heals them. I've put together, does it work? Yeah, it works. I didn't actually test it. I've put together an emotional needs book pack. This set of, it's supposed to be 5 books, but I didn't bring the 5th one, is here. It covers the basic essentials of learning to meet the emotional needs of one another in relationships. While these are primarily geared toward marriages, much of what we learn in these books can be applied to other relationships as well, including relationships with our children, our friends, our coworkers, and even our players, as I will talk about in this session. I had wanted to have a few sets of the book pack right here on site in time for the conference, but I wasn't able to order them to get them here in time. You can order them from my Amazon store online, printed in the handout that I've passed out. Thank you, Raphael, for taking care of that, which you hopefully will have by the end of this session if you don't have one already. If you don't have one, you can see Raphael. He's got the stack. I've included a QR code so you can scan it with your phone and order online more easily. So who am I? And why am I teaching this class? I'm a wife, mother, and Christian game developer. I have been a Christian for 42 years. I've been a wife for 24 and a half years. I've been a mother for 22 years. And I've been a game developer leading a volunteer team for 12 years. I've been attending CGDC since 2006, which I think is 9 years. And I've been a speaker at the conference all but 3 of those years. I've studied political science in college many years ago. I don't have anything resembling a degree or certificate of any sort in counseling or psychology. I cannot offer you medical or marital or emotional counsel. I can only share from my own experiences and insights. My knowledge on this topic comes from the School of Hard Knocks and an 8-week course that my husband and I just finished in June called Dynamic Marriage. That class changed our life for the better, and I hope I can share some of these positive insights with you here today. I think I'm a slide behind. Maybe not. So what does marriage enrichment class have to do with game development? On the surface, it might not seem like it has much at all to do with it. But marriage is the most intimate, most profound relationship that we can have with another human being. Marriage done right can be amazing. Marriage done wrong can be devastating. Marriage can be the source of our greatest blessings or our most painful hurts. Marriage can represent the manifestation of God's love in our life, or it can destroy our hope for experiencing any kind of love in this life. The first relationship we see in the Bible is a union of a man and woman in marriage ordained by God. Marriage is the cornerstone of human relationships. Marriage is threaded throughout all of our lives. From our childhood, when we witness our parents' marriage, through our teen years, when we anticipate our own future marriage, and adulthood, when most of us experience our own marriage. For better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. Our marriage affects our relationships, it affects our careers, it affects our parenting style, it affects our faith. It profoundly affects our children, and it affects our reputation in the community. there is not one area of life that marriage does not affect us. It is absolutely the most important decision we make in life, second only to accepting Jesus as our Savior. God wired us for marriage. Marriage is designed to meet our most important emotional needs. And marriage is meant to be a source of stability and love and positive growth in our lives. When one or both spouses fail to meet the most important emotional needs of the other spouse is when trouble starts. The Dynamic Marriage course helps couples identify problem areas and learn new habits and skills to meet each other's emotional needs, so that couples can heal from past wounds and have the marriage that God intended. With this understanding, I think we can look at the principles of creating a good marriage and use those same concepts and skills to create amazing games. I think we can look at some of the current games on the market today and see where some of them are already meeting important emotional needs and are taking that to the bank. Games that meet important emotional needs can be addictive games, possibly because they're meeting needs that are unmet in their real-life relationships. As we look at some of these needs, we can identify areas where society works against us and creates schisms and awkwardness in our relationships that make it difficult for people to meet some of these most important emotional needs. So the purpose of this talk is twofold. First, to learn how to make addictive Christian games that meet important emotional needs to players. Second, to use this information to figure out ways to implement some form of content in our games that will train players how to use these emotional needs to meet unmet needs in their own real-life relationships and improve their lives. I had wanted to have a workshop following this session where we could brainstorm ideas together about how this might be accomplished, but apparently there wasn't enough time in the schedule for a second entire session to do this. So hopefully you can all take the information presented in this talk home with you and apply the knowledge to your own projects as the Lord leads you. There may be time at the end for questions, but please hold questions until the end, as I'm trying to cram an 8-week class and several books that I've read into a 1-hour talk. And I would like to at least cover the material first. So please refrain from asking questions until the end. We may be pressed for time to cover everything as it is. Before we can identify game features that meet emotional needs in games, we need to have an understanding of what the emotional needs are. We can't begin to hope to impart a complete understanding of how these emotional needs are met in marriage, considering there's an entire book on the topic. But I will try to establish some definitions here so we can all be on the same page. Some of them are self-explanatory. The others I will try to give a brief overview before we move on. The author of the book, His Needs, Her Needs, which is here, I'll hold it up in case you guys can't see from other places. This is a primary one we'll be addressing. Has discovered in his 20 years of practice as a marriage therapist that there are 10 common emotional needs that everyone has. Everyone needs all 10 of these needs to feel fulfilled and loved, with 5 of them generally ranking higher than the others on the list of needs. There's significant variation among individuals, but overall, men tend to have a stronger need for the ones on the his needs list, and women tend to have a stronger need for the ones on the her needs list. You'll notice they are not the same. This is where a lot of confusion and conflict comes from, because we tend to express the need that we need the most, which frequently does not directly meet the other person's primary need. It certainly fills a lesser need, but if the primary needs go unmet, a void is created that creates rifts in the relationship, a subtle kind of neglect that aches on an emotional level, a feeling of loneliness and hunger that can only be appeased by having that need met. You'll see on your handout the primary emotional needs for both men and women. The most common top 5 emotional needs for men and women for For his needs are sexual fulfillment, recreational companionship, an attractive spouse, domestic support, and admiration. For her needs, they are affection, intimate conversation, honesty and openness, financial support, and family commitment. Sexual fulfillment is a critical emotional need that left unmet can cause marriage to fail. It's not just important for the husbands either. 20% of women report that this is their top emotional need. Affection is the non-sexual touching and interaction between people. Hugs, kisses, cuddles, holding hands, putting arms around each other, brushing a hand across their body as they walk by, pleasant, complimentary touches. Everyone needs this, whether they are married or not, but married couples especially need to express it to one another. If this need is not met in marriage, someone else will meet it. Touches for couples, platonic touches for friends and children. Recreational companionship is basically doing things together instead of doing them apart. It means instead of playing golf with your coworkers and leaving your spouse at home, that you find something that is fun for both of you and you go do that with your spouse instead. It is allowing your spouse to be your favorite partner in everything you do. It might mean giving up one recreational activity and learning a new one together instead. They had over 200 activities listed in the workbook, everything from archery and boating to gardening, amusement parks, and dining out. We added some more to the list that were more relevant to things we like to do. Playing games can be one of the things. Intimate conversation is more than just talking about the weather or your schedules for the week or what you're going to have for dinner. Intimate conversation is when you share the inmost thoughts of your heart, your hopes, your dreams, your fears and struggles. When you share your goals and worries and work together to find solutions. It's talking about things that are intimately important to your lives, telling each other things that you don't tell anyone else. Most often, critically important for women, but everyone needs this. An attractive spouse is making an effort to look good for your spouse. It can be everything from taking a shower every day, to fixing your hair and wearing nice clothes, to working out, to wearing perfume or cologne, or putting on makeup and nails, or putting on a suit and tie once a week, or the dress to look good for your spouse when you're together. There are stories of this working both ways for men and women. It is important for everyone. Honesty and openness is primarily related to conversation, but also has to do with emails, text, work activities, no secret lunches, and interactions with other people, even family members. Sometimes even a parent or sibling will sabotage a marriage if secrecy in the marriage allows it to happen. It isn't always from infidelity. Sometimes it's just an atmosphere of distrust that breaks down the intimacy in the relationship. Both spouses should have all passwords to all electronic devices, phones, email accounts, and bank accounts. Otherwise, one spouse, being shunned, will start to wonder what the other spouse is hiding, and the relationship will break down. Dishonesty and secretive behavior is a major love buster in many relationships. Domestic support is a little tricky to understand, I think because it can mean different things to different people. For some couples, having the wife home to cook the meals is the most important thing. For other couples, having a spouse do the cleaning is important. There are reports in the His Needs, Her Needs book of affairs with a housekeeper because the housekeeper was the person meeting this important emotional need instead of the spouse. Basically, it means that there's an emotional need for the spouse to help with keeping house and preparing meals and keeping life in order. Financial support is an emotional need to be provided for. While every household needs an income provider, some individuals, often women, have a deep emotional need to have their spouse take care of them financially. Men often have an instinctive need to be a good provider, so it generally works well in marriages when the woman has the need for financial support and the men feel the need to be the provider. And couples balance their careers and life goals to complement these emotional needs. It can be a strain on the marriage if the spouse that feels this emotional need has to carry the burden of meeting the family's financial obligations. Games can simulate this need to some degree, creating an addictive experience for players, especially if they have a need of financial provision. Admiration is the verbal side of affection. Admiration is expressing appreciation, respect, approval, and compliments. It means one spouse telling the other how much they admire them and why every day, multiple times a day, in different situations if possible. It means telling each other how much they like each other, what they like about each other. It means giving praise for a job well done and showing appreciation for the efforts in the relationship. Everything from the daily grind of going to work every day to providing for the family to complimenting each other's choices of clothes for that day, or their hair, or their eyes, or the efforts they're making to get in shape, or whatever is relevant to the moment. Everyone needs this. And as we will talk later in this talk, this is one of the major areas where games can really excel in meeting an important emotional need that is often neglected in people's lives. And this morning at breakfast, I was talking with Kyle Garner, and he has some insight on respect, which is another form of admiration. Kyle, could you share with us those 5 points of respect that we talked about?
Sure. Let's see, read a lot of stuff, and including about half the books that she's got on her table there. Some of the things that really came pronounced out during this, maybe I should stand up.
Go ahead, stand up.
Was respect is one of those things, admiration is a need that we all kind of generally have. And from one of the readings was saying that the term respect comes in 5 ingredients, and if you're missing one of these ingredients, you just don't have respect. So those would be, what really made a difference to me was that it consists of healing, empowerment, dialogue, curiosity, and self-respect. And by showing those things to another human being is essentially showing them respect, which is really hard to do, especially in the heat of the moment.
Can you go back over those one more time?
Thank you. Yeah, can you show those 5 points again?
Sure.
Healing,
which is like if you've like insulted somebody, it's like coming up with the I'm sorry part. The empowerment, so like letting them know what tools exist for them to be able to help make their end of the thing even more bountiful. Not just saying, well, if you would do this, I would be better. It's not like that at all. It's like, I really enjoy this particular thing that you do because it reflects your wonderful femininity or your companionship or something like that.
I value your perspective.
Value your perspective. Yeah, exactly. Let's see, having the dialogue, very important. Like the silent treatment just doesn't work. And so, let's see, curiosity, which is sometimes the hardest part, is being genuinely interested in someone else's perspective, that empathy, to discover why they feel differently than you. And it's really hard to be open for, like especially a computer programmer like myself, it's really hard for me to do that. But when doing that, it extends that empathy that everybody needs, one of those 36 human needs from nonviolent communication. And then lastly, that self-respect is not being a doormat. Like knowing what your boundaries are and being able to not draw the line in the sand like an ultimatum, but knowing where you are in what you need, and if someone's crossing a line or something, being able to stand up and have that dialogue. Is that better?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kyle. Family commitment is both caring for the children and being in agreement about how to raise the children, as well as actually being there for the children and for parents and for other areas of family involvement. It means putting important family events before career goals. It means working together to decide what activities, events, sports, vacations, and obligations the family will be involved in, and then following through with those plans together as a team. That's the super condensed nutshell version of what it took us 8 weeks to learn in the dynamic marriage class. I really have not done it justice. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for every couple to take this class. It will change your life. But this talk is not about changing your marriage as much as it is supposed to be about changing the way we make games. Or perhaps just being more intentional about the way we make games. There are a couple of other books I've read about emotional needs and emotional languages. There are aspects of these books also that, if incorporated into game design, can magnify the addictiveness or fun factor of a game. These two books are The 5 Love Languages and The 5 Money Personalities, which are over here. The 5 Love Languages. I think there's a new one out with a different cover. Your copy might not look like this. And this is The 5 Money Personalities by Scott and Bethany Palmer. I guess I didn't say the author of these others. This is Willard F. Harvey. This is Gary Chapman and Scott and Bethany Palmer. I'm not sure why all these books keep coming up with 5 things, but it seems to be a running theme with them. At any rate, some of you may have already read The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's been out for a very long time, and it's a very popular book. The 5 Money Personalities is a little less common and doesn't address emotional needs or love as much as it addresses the different ways people think and relate to money. Think about and relate to money. Since so many games, especially online games, have a currency system and a game economy, this is an important aspect of personality study to consider when designing our games. Oh, look, a new slide. Briefly, the 5 love languages are acts of service, physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, and giving gifts. I noticed some overlap between the 5 love languages and some of the primary emotional needs of couples. I don't think this is a coincidence. I think they're fairly self-explanatory, so I'm going to skip over sharing definitions to move on so we can get to the part about making games. If you have any questions about the definitions of these, feel free to talk to me after the session. The 5 money personalities are saver, spender, risk taker, security seeker, and flyer. I think these do require some definitions, but I'll try to keep them to just 1 or 2 sentences each. The saver avoids any kind of debt like the plague and feels good when they get a really good deal on a purchase they need. They don't like spending money unless they have to, and when they have to, they want to get it on sale so they save the most money possible. Spenders are willing to spend money to make life more fun for themselves and their loved ones. They don't necessarily spend money just to spend it, but are often willing to sacrifice their own desires to buy a gift if they know that buying something will make someone they care about happy. Risk takers are willing to spend money for the chance to make money. Or sometimes this is manifested in other areas where they're willing to spend extra time in order to gain deeper relationships. Security seekers have a deep need to know they have made the best possible decision with their money. They research everything, analyze every aspect of a situation, sometimes to the point of paralysis and inability to make a decision. Flyers don't really care much about money. They're footloose and fancy-free, happy to let someone else make the money decisions for them as long as those decisions don't restrict their style. I believe if we apply any of these principles to our game designs, that we will ultimately create addictive games that people will come back to again and again and again. And with any luck, maybe we can change the world one player at a time to learn more positive habits of interaction with other people that they will carry over into their real lives. If we can implement these ideas in our games correctly, I believe it's possible we could teach people the critical relationship skills that so very many people are lacking to have healthy relationships and healthier families. Some of these emotional needs clearly cannot be effectively met in Christian games. Some are not meant to be met by anyone but the spouse. But with some creativity, perhaps as game designers, we could find ways to encourage people to be proactive in meeting those emotional needs in a healthy way in their marriage, the way God intended. Other items on the list are easier to address, and if we had an hour, we could talk about different ways or ideas each of you might have to implement some of these skills into gameplay in such a way that it encourages to have healthier relationships. As it is, however, we'll have to take our ideas home and work them out in our own games. So let me go over each of these items one by one with some of the suggestions I've come up with in how to meet emotional needs in games to create addictive games. As you're listening, please write down any ideas you have to implement those ideas in your games, especially if you have ideas on how to implement game content that will teach people how to improve their relationships in their real life through activities they complete in the game. If we help people live better and love better through games, we will have accomplished an amazing achievement in our work. So here we go. Applying emotional needs to games. Some ideas for how we can do it. Affection is one that could be implemented into games through animations and emotes. Hugs, pats on the back, holding hands are all things we could have our avatars do in the game world to encourage physical interaction between players. Recreational companionship is a huge area for us to capitalize on. It goes hand in hand with family commitment as well, and that many times the children can join in also. In multiplayer games, we can have people play together in all manner of ways. We can have couples tournaments. We can have events that encourage couples to play together on the team instead of against each other. Cooperative games can help build positive relationships. I wish we had several hours to discuss and write down all your ideas. I know you all have many clever ideas about game development, and I believe the Christian game dev community could really be strengthened by sharing our ideas interactively and inspiring one another to greatness. Please be thinking of ways that this could be implemented into your games you are making. Be intentional about having couples or families play together cooperatively rather than as adversaries. Intimate conversation is a little more tricky. We can have game characters and NPCs share intimate details about something happening in the context of the game, but the NPC can talk about their hopes and dreams to set an example of how it should be done. But how to get the actual players to practice intimate conversation is more difficult. Maybe just setting an example is enough, though. Many people have grown up in dysfunctional homes and simply do not know how to express intimate conversation with their loved one. Perhaps we could teach them through games. An attractive spouse. Tara does this to such an extreme that it's overkill almost in the wrong direction. A huge aspect of achievement in Tara is to be able to get better looking outfits for your avatar. There are all manner of fancy outfits to collect. Some of them can have custom dyes applied, so there is a variety in color added by the players. Some of the outfits are quite risque, though they are very attractive, particularly to males. I have no doubt that the avatars in Terra meet this emotional need to be visually stimulated by an attractive spouse, only it isn't usually their spouse, it's a game avatar. This is one area where we have to be careful as Christian game developers, that we encourage to strive for excellence without creating a stumbling block that could lead someone into pornography or other harmful addictions. If we can encourage spouses to play together and even choose outfits for one another through gift giving, this could be one way to encourage players to learn the art of becoming an attractive spouse. I think it is also important that both male and female characters in game are equally attractive. Some games spend a lot of time making attractive female characters and essentially ignore the males, creating an imbalance in the game for players choosing one gender of avatar over the other. Honesty and openness is another one that would need to be heavily content-driven through quests and NPC interactions. Our culture sometimes encourages dishonesty in life and in games. Dishonesty isn't always outright lies. Sometimes it's just withholding a little bit of the truth. She doesn't have to know I'm the one that broke it. We could just say it got broken. That would be dishonesty. Secretive behavior is an aspect of this too. When one spouse gets angry and says things like, "Why do you have to be so nosy?" when asked about the content of an email they're reading or a conversation they're having in texts. So we have a huge teaching opportunity in games to teach people about the way dishonesty and secretive behaviors can destroy relationships and replace those habits with positive skills of honesty and openness. I'd love to hear some of your ideas on how to accomplish this. All I've been able to think of are implementing quests that have honesty as the theme. Domestic support is one that could be implemented in different ways. I tend to think in the context of MMOs, but this could be implemented through smaller Facebook games or phone games as well. Games that teach about house cleaning, yard work, farming, childcare, or even generic servant heart character traits. Financial support is a huge opportunity in games. Almost every game has some kind of currency and economy. Many games even have multiple currencies, such as game currency earned from quests and micro-purchase currency, which can be bought with real money. Games offer the unique opportunity to amass tremendous wealth in a virtual world, which gives the players a feeling of security and accomplishment. The financial-oriented emotional needs and all of the money personalities fit into this facet of game design. If the game currencies and economies are well designed, it can create a highly addictive and rewarding experience in the game. If it's done exceptionally well, perhaps through quests or other interactive content, it can teach people how to communicate love through financial support to their spouse, children, and loved ones. Admiration is probably the most common and most effective emotional need to be met through games. Terra does this very well. I suspect each of you can think of some of your favorite games and how they have implemented admiration and respect into the content to improve emotional attachment to the game. The game lavishes compliments on the player, telling them how amazing it is they completed a difficult task. The game gives them rank promotions to simulate an environment of esteemed honor. The NPCs tell the player that the virtual community would have failed had the player not completed that life-saving activity, and then rewards them with new equipment, meeting an attractiveness need, and a pocket full of money, meeting the financial need as well. And I think games are able to meet this need so effectively because our culture as a society actually discourages the expression of compliments. Most people do not grow up in homes where compliments or praise are offered generously. And sometimes even when they are, it's in a negative atmosphere associated with it, as if some behavioral response is expected in return for the positive reinforcement. In the game environment, there are no strings attached. It is pure, accomplishment-driven praise, and it is poured on lavishly in some cases. This greatly boosts self-esteem and makes the players feel like they're achieving something important in life through the game, even if they feel like a failure in their real life. Here are some screenshots from Terra, a game I've been playing with my family this year, demonstrating the implementation and admiration, emotional need in the game dialogue. So here we see the NPC says, "Excellent. Now to find their leader. Anyone who can stand against those Argon soldiers is a credit to the Federation, and lucky as well." So you've just, your single existence is a benefit to the entire military. Good riddance. No more sacrifices. So now they've eliminated a practice of sacrifice in the game. We wouldn't have stopped them without you. Insert character name, right? So they're saying that this, you as the player, you've totally saved the village. They couldn't have done it without you. You got through? Seems there's no dross in you. That seemed particularly powerful to me because it means you're pure gold. Look at these shields. These were no Argon minions. Those were some of their strongest destroyers. Well done. You're so powerful. You defeated not only one, but many of their strongest military enemies. Sikander bless you. You've saved the future of Sikandria. You've saved an entire people group in this game just through one quest. We'll all be Kolkar's uncle. You did it. You didn't really think you were going to be able to do it. You thought you were going to get killed. So you have just annihilated them. So you didn't just eliminate them. You annihilated them. They use really powerful language. It's very empowering to the player. It makes you feel strong. Bless you, priest. If we were as brave as you, we'll all be all right. I liked that one. So you can also give blessings to the players in games. I think the world needs more blessings. So family commitment is one of the harder emotional needs to meet in games, but it can still be done with some creativity and focused application in game design. Encouraging players to take their family fishing together rather than going on a fishing trip with their buddies could be one example of how to implement family commitment into games. There are already many sports games on the market. If any of them implement attributes of taking the family to the ballpark or teaching the kids how to play sports, these could have elements of family commitment in them. Simulation games could have elements that encourage the worker to go home to their family instead of going to the bar with a coworker. Anything that encourages positive domestic interactions and embraces family commitment could qualify to meet this important emotional need. And if it teaches people how to meet this need for their loved ones in their real lives, all the better. Acts of service. So now we're talking about the 5 love languages. Acts of service are one of the most popular elements to be incorporated into computer games, especially MMOs. Most quests in MMOs meet this need on some level. Fetching quests, of harvest, gathering items, finding lost crates. There's mercenary quests where you're fighting someone else's enemies. There's scouting quests to learn information for an NPC's mission. There's other areas of acts of service in games, tending to the NPC offspring in the Badger game that we heard about yesterday in one of the classes. Thought that was a really important act of service demonstrated already in a game. Hunting for food in the Oregon Trail, or serving customers in Facebook cooking games. Physical touch. It's difficult to add to most traditional computer games because you can't really touch each other. You can simulate it in a virtual environment, but it's hard to incorporate physical touch. But I came up with a few ways we might be able to do it. Physical sensation can be added, but very little relationship-related emotional reward has been incorporated into existing technology. I don't have any ideas for that. Please share them later if you have some. For the physical part, just a sensation, we can add vibration response in controllers for games. The Wiimote, I think, and some others have vibration. VR equipment, such as the Omni, Vivirtuix, Oculus Rift, Razer Hydra, STEM by Sixth Sense. Simulation cockpits for flying, such as the Voltaire Sim, and racing, such as the Blue Tiger. And I wanted to have some screenshots and video of the Blue Tiger, but I didn't get it implemented, sorry. Somebody has one like in their living room. It was really cool. So, quality time. This also includes quantity time. There are some different ways we can incorporate quality time into games. There are some different ways we can create multiplayer games that encourage couples to play together and encourage parents to play with children. We can create meaningful gameplay that encourage people to do things together. We can create content in solo games that demonstrates healthy relationships, healthy families, to model a healthy life for players that may have never seen what a healthy family looks like. And content that demonstrates quantity time is just as valuable as quality time. They go together. It's hard to have quality time in 5 minutes a day. Words of affirmation. This love language directly overlaps with the his needs, her needs, emotional need for affirmation. I think that since it overlaps so clearly, that this emphasizes how profoundly affirming words are to healthy relationships. Use lots of compliments in games. Use lots of praise for performance, rank advancements, and promotional bonuses. Teach affirmation through example. Make addictive games by meeting this emotional need. Giving gifts. The love language for gift giving is manifested both through the act of giving and the experience of receiving. We can have quests where players give gifts to an NPC, pick flowers, get some kind of reward for giving. More powerful would be to have options in a multiplayer game where they can give gifts to their friends. Many MMOs already have this implemented on some level. Through Twinks, which anybody who maybe didn't play EverQuest, Twinks is when you give high-level armor to a low-level character. Pocket pets, which are just little pets, little animals and things that have no other purpose in the game than to be cute and follow you around. Micro purchases or game gold purchased gifts. So that can be basically anything that's in the store. You can buy it and give it to someone else. Costumes, weapons, mounts, clothing dyes, trade skill ingredients, etc. For people with a gifts love language, both giving and receiving are powerful communicators of love. It doesn't have to be expensive to be meaningful. As I said before, incorporating the 5 money personalities should be considered when planning the game economy as much as possible. In the book Thou Shalt Prosper, Daniel Lapine says, money is a spiritual experience. It affects us on a spiritual level. Perhaps if we look at money as something that impacts our emotions and our souls, rather than just our budgets, we can find other ways to incorporate different aspects of the money personalities in our games. So just remember what all the different aspects of saver, spender, risk taker, security seeker, and flyer are. Hopefully, this list has been enough to get you thinking about how you can implement powerful emotional needs into your game designs. Reach the world for Christ through games. Make the world a better place.